Very much, yes, we are honored. We're very happy and honored to have you with us. Thank you very much for accepting to be with us today. This part of the workshop is going to be, this first hour of the workshop is going to be, your part is going to be a public, is going to be accessible to the public. For those who are interested, they will join us. We will be recording it, and we have also simultaneous translation on one of the channels into Arabic, so it will allow also more people to have access, more access, and also to, if they want to ask questions to you. And also, if you do not mind and the participants do not mind, we will need to take, like the organizers need to take one screenshot for press or like for PR use. And yeah, this workshop is organized upon an invitation and collaboration with the Al-Qattan Foundation from Ramallah, and with support from Sweden through like a particular program that aims to support, that has been running for almost 3 years, that has been supporting the function, like the functionality aspect of institutions and also artistic projects in mostly in Palestine mainly. So very warm welcome to you. Let me just introduce you. I just have this. Madhu studied theater at the National School of Drama in India. She's a filmmaker, curator, and author. She's the founder and former director of Majlis, which ran between 1998 and 2015, and was the Center for Rights Discourse and Interdisciplinary Art Initiatives in Mumbai. Her areas of interest are documentary practices, urbanology, interdisciplinary archiving practices, and public culture. Dutta's films are shown widely at international film festivals and art events. They are taught in several university departments and study centers. She has been a part of jury for several international film festivals, including Berlinale Shorts in 2015. Madhu received numerous film awards and civil society honors. In 2019, she has received Lifetime Achievement Award at International Documentary and Short Film Festival of Kerala and Cultural Manager of the Year Prize from the Cologne Cultural Council. She has initiated and curated several art and cultural projects. Among others are Expression, the first festival on feminist arts and art discourse in India in 1990, and Culture at WSF, the art component for the World Social Forum in 2004, which we will be talking about today. But also Madhusree and I, we met through several aspects, but most importantly, the Academy of the Arts of the World in Cologne, for which Madhu has been the artistic director since March 2018. And we have co-curate, I had the honor and the pleasure to co-curate with Madhusree the exhibition Hands, which is still running and happening in Cologne since July, and it's gonna run until mid-December.
You can see the poster behind me.
And you can see the poster behind Madhu. And it is on, it's an art campaign that responds to the conditions or the limitations that we have gone through, and also the this distrust that we have towards our hand, we had towards our hand since the pandemic, by inviting 9 artists to produce works, not only that invite the visitors to interact with them, but also to have versions of them or multiples of them that could also visit the people in their houses or in their own places, rather than just come to the exhibition space in Cologne. Very warm welcome to you, Madhu. And no, your mic is not.
Hello, Ala. Thank you for such a warm and long introduction. I can see it in the faces of our participants today that I sound like ancient, right? Well, maybe, I mean, one should really avoid saying 1990 first curating. I mean, you have no idea when it was 1990. And yeah, so I will try my best to speak about curating in 2021 rather than 1990. But one disclaimer is that when I curated that Women's Art Festival in 1990, curating was not the word anybody was using. And I was too young to do any curating. I knew nothing. It was a kind of irreverence because nobody was doing it. Nobody was showing our work. So I thought, okay, we will do something so that our friends, peer, we just wanted to use the word feminist art, women's art in public. And nobody was using that. It was not a valid word. So it was a compulsion. And I think curating is a kind of compulsion. We need to do curating when we think that it just absolutely has to be done and there is no platform exists which is doing it. So we do it. At least that's how I come into the field. I actually hesitate to call myself curating, and so I'm a little self-conscious to talk with you. Maybe you know much more about curating than I do. I'm sure you do. Some of you may have studied in some art institution curating. I did nothing. I became curator because nobody was doing it, so I started doing it. And then curator word became too loaded. Of late, it is a lot of power. Curators has a body language which earlier museum director used to have, or say collectors used to have. Like curators enter a gathering, art gathering, and everybody's body language changes. So I hate it. I don't actually call myself a curator, but I definitely am a citizen of art world. I mean, this is how I live. Everybody need not to live by art, but I live by art. I also earn my livelihood by art. And today we have reached a point that that if you care for art, if for some reason you have decided that this is your world, this is where you belong to, you will have to be a curator. You can be an artist, you can be a writer, you can be a filmmaker, you can be a designer, you can be a craft person, you can be many other things, but other than you and your two hands, if you want to expand even a little bit, you'll have to be a curator. And this will be an interactive session, okay? So I'll also ask you some questions, and you also please stop me at any point and ask me questions. Now, I ask you, do you know what curator means? When was this word first used?
When I first heard it, there was like a very much confusion about whether this is the curator of museums, like maybe it is in the context of museum very much used, but with this association with contemporary art, it was maybe a little bit more than a decade ago. Yani.
Anybody else? Do you know what is the, now don't quickly do Google, please. Okay? How was the word came into use? No Googling, please.
No Googling. Does anyone have an idea? Iman, you seems to have an idea. No?
No, not really.
Jude?
Something like,
from what I know, it came from this understanding of caretaking, caring for collections, and was used within the museum context to refer to that. And then the meaning of it expanded over time to include a diverse number of practices, which changed also the meaning of the word to what we understand it to be today, which is obviously still negotiated. But yeah, from what I understand, it was associated with taking care of collections within museums, some of them obviously colonial museums.
Jude. How do you pronounce your name? Jude?
Jude.
Jude. Okay, Jude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true, but that is also late 20th century. But the English word curator is actually much older. And it was used, I mean, you're absolutely right, but we'll go a little backwards. And sometime like 19th century or maybe even earlier than that, exact time, even I don't know, it was used for church. Now, church actually used to preserve documents, whatever is a document, city document, people's birth and death and diseases, vaccines, which is very important for us, all documents and records about pandemic, about trade, about who is coming to the village, who is leaving. That means migration. What today's state does, before state came into the wing, church used to keep all these documents, and the person who was preserving this record, these documents of civil society, of social life, was called curator. And people those days also used to donate when they didn't know what to do. Most of the people had no idea about what to do with documents, with records. So they used to donate it not only to the church, to synagogue, to temples, to mosque. People used to do that. But this word curator was used first in the context of the church. I mean, similar position must have been there in other societies where these institutions were the temple, mosque or synagogue. In fact, synagogue had a practice that people who died, any documents, any paper related to them should not be thrown away. It should be submitted to the synagogue, which actually become the base of many great libraries today. Okay, so library got enriched by these documents which were preserved. I would not call these religious institutions, by these social institutions. And the priest who was particularly in charge of it called curator. And it's very interesting that later on in 20th century, it came to be used, as you'd said, for the museum caretaker, basically a person who take care of collection. Now, what is the journey from there to here? I mean, one is that because these institutions like church, mosque, temple, synagogue, they lost the space of secular institution because religion and state became separate. So all the secular documents, which are civil society documents, were not trusted with them anymore. And state needed to have other institutions like museums, libraries, archives, and then position of caretaker, then shifted from this institution to those institutions. But it was always institutional, and it has something to do with caregiving. What is caregiving at a particular time, it changed from time to time. Now you must think before you really decide that you want to be a curator, whether you have the temperament of a caregiver, which is very important. And I don't really expect that everybody has the temperament of caregiving. And it's not shameful if you don't have that temperament. But just don't see the power of a curator, just see that the kind of tenacity that you need to take care of the artist, of the art, and most importantly, art spaces and art audience. It's a very, very strenuous job. It don't confuse it with the fun of making art in your own studio. Okay, it's a different game, different temperament. Temperament is very important. Of course, you can learn curating, you can learn art history, you can learn various mediums, installation science, but this temperament is very important. Now, this concept of curating as a political concept. Like today, it is not even used as museum or official state institution of art. It is used in the context of independent practice. Like when the Biennale, Triennale, all these things became important in the art world, why did those came? Those came as opposed to the museums which were hoarding art. Okay, which were treating art as capital, as asset, museums and big galleries. As against that, more to us public, to make art accessible, these movements came up, and the word curator came back in circulation in that context, that people who will collate art, artworks, art expression together for general audience. That means they will not only collate art, but they will also do some pedagogy with the ordinary people, because Biennale, Triennale, the whole idea is that it runs for 3 months, 4 months, open to public, 24 hours. People go there for picnic. I mean, we allowed these things, right? And there was a point that in order to go to museums, it was like almost like having bath and wearing fresh clothes and being very pristine, because you were entering a pristine place. To break that kind of bastion, the word curator came back in circulation. Of course, like every movement runs, according to me, not more than 20, 30 years, and it get into the same trap. So according to me, Biennale and Triennale is also going towards that. But that's another story that we'll talk about some other time. So any question, you can anytime ask me or raise your hands, okay? Now, curating in today's context, it started approximately in the 70s. One of the earliest, there can be argument, history writing has this terrible habit of saying this is the first one, this is the last one. So there is no first, there is always something is prepared for decades, and then something happens, and suddenly, and if it happens in Europe and America, then it is called first time. There is actually very difficult to say anything which is first time, because there is a generational thought. People think in different, they don't know each other, but different parts of the globe, people think similarly. One of them managed to get the idea out. In commercial term, they get it patented. So then that moment is called the first time, but actually not first. But one such first time, of course, happened in America in the 70s, Detroit. Detroit is a city, my very favorite city, because I'm interested in industries of the 20th century. So the post-industry. Detroit is where American automobile industry was in 20th century. So it was a source of much of America's wealth in the 20th century. And now it is, not now, from 80s onwards, it became a ghost town. People left the city. People left the city in the sense they just got up and left. They did not even log their houses, because they were so sure they will never come back. There's no question of coming back home. That is also because most of them were Black workers who were slaves. I mean, there are some people who spent their earlier life as slaves and then became a worker, an independent worker. And some of them are just the second generation, like their parents were slaves. So the concept of home was not as deep as you and I, as free people, would have. In order to have a memory or desire for home, you need to be a free person. Is it complicated to understand? Detroit working class was first generation free people, Black slave, first generation of freedom. So when suddenly they lost their job, they just left. There was no concept of locking the doors, because they never had a door before that. For 10 years, maybe they had a door when they were industrial worker, and then suddenly, it's gone, kaput. Anyway, so there was one curator, was her name, Mary, I'll come across the name, I'm forgetting now. Mary Jacob, I think. In 70s, she was a very young person in Detroit Art Institute, and she started going to these factories and these houses and put together some material and discarded material and elements and invited people to come and visit. That is considered as one of the first site-specific curation. I mean, as I told you, I don't believe in first, but this is, of course, one of the earliest of contemporary practice, could be. Why it is important? Because of the site. Because she was reacting to the site. Now, this shows if it is brought to, say, Amman or to Cologne, will they work? May or may not, right? You'll have to do something in order to make it work. But what you can do in Detroit when people got up and left, okay, former slaves, former industrial workers, now unemployed, just get up and leave. So the city becomes a ghost town. In that, you can put together certain things and call it an art show, and it works. I have not seen it. It most probably has worked. And then it becomes art. And then we bring it to other land which doesn't have that history, which has other histories. Will that work? Or will that not work? Is that the curator's job to make it work? Is it a curator's job to bring it to other side? Or it is your job not to do such things? It's blasphemous. You don't do it. You don't take one history and completely uproot it and take it somewhere else. It's like taking a plant from one continent to another continent. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm just putting up the questions in your mind. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I think it depends also on the intentions, the readiness. I mean, who is it made for, right? Is it made for the makers? Is it made for the visitors? Is it made also for, like, does the show come with its own, you know, like the works travel, but also the visitors travel? I think these are all very present in this
absolutely process. So what it is that we cannot think of curating only at one end. That means what we are going to curate, but whom are we curating for is equally important. That means knowing 100 artists all over the globe will not make you the greatest curator of the world. You need to know your audience. And that's why I'm a little hesitant to talk to you, because I don't know your reality, in the sense, the cities you come from, or the villages, settlements you come from, I have not visited. You have not visited where I am from. So there are certain things which are very common between our practices, between our experiences we can share. But still, there are also many things that are very specific, that are site-specific. Site is very important. And if we want to say that there are connections from one site to another site, that's very delicate. That is what colonialism also said. That is where hegemony always said. You know, when they collect in the museum of the Western world, the native antiquity, then also they say that we are interested. We are interested in Ottoman stitching, or African craft, or Indian music, or things like that. So we collect, and we collect them as an asset. So basically, this collection that you make from one location and then take it to another location, a dislocation happen. Now, dislocation is not always bad. Sometimes it gives us a distance which helps us in understanding. It's possible something from my life, if you read, you will understand it better because you have little distance. You are not overwhelmed by emotion, by what you have heard from your grandmother, from your parents, from in your school. You have little distance. So maybe, not always, but maybe you are a better person to see the merit in it, but not always. This is very tricky because this is how power enters. If I decide that you can read my story better than me, then I give you certain power. And that is generally a colonial power. That is generally a white power. And curators are always very close to this power. So unless you restrict yourself, unless you decide a few criteria, parameter as fairness, it can become a colonial practice. It's a dangerous profession, I would say. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm only saying negative.
No, it's very interesting. I see a hand raised from Darqandil. Can you?
Yes, please come there. Yeah.
Yes. Please, do you want to ask your question in English or Arabic? Darqandil.
علاء بدك تسأل؟
مرحبا. Hello, he says hello.
Yeah, okay. Anything, you want to ask a question or should I go ahead?
بدك تسأل سؤال ولا؟
لا كانت لما سألت سؤال إنه الناس لازم يجوا ولا إحنا لازم نروح للناس.
He was responding about your question whether we would go to people or wait people to come to us. أيوة.
Yeah.
يعني بحكي ممكن إنه يعني أكيد يعني بجوز التنتين يعني مهمات يعني التنتين مناح والتنتين مهمات لا يمكن إنه نحكي إنه لازم نروح أو لازم يجوا حسب يعني إذا اللي بيحتاج بالنص في مساحة بالنص في محل بالنص بجوز عشان هيك بجوز الشيء إذا بينبني على بالتشارك ممكن إنه يكون في محل ثالث.
Okay, he's saying that both he can see like one more important than the other. Maybe there is a point where both meet in the middle. Is there like a point that for both to meet in the middle? One cannot be independent of the other.
Absolutely.
And if there could be a partnership in this meeting. So that we create a third place, like, you know, it's not like where we come, where they come. There is a third place in this meeting moment. Hello, thank you.
Thank you, Shukriya. Do you say Shukriya in Arabic?
We say something.
Shukran?
Shukran.
Shukran, okay. Shukriya you say in Urdu, which is a language spoken in my country. So I can say, yeah.
But it's very close, so we can understand what it means.
Yes. So we agreed that, thank you very much for raising it. So we go to people or people come to us and she said that we should try to develop a middle point, which is a third point. Now the thing is, how do we do it? I'm sorry to say, people don't like to see two things, which we want to show. One is that people don't like to see which is not entertaining. People have enough problem in life. Okay, they don't want to come to you and tell them what you tell them what their problem is, because they are living their problem. So they want to have a nice time, see some Mills and Boon love story or some funny things or some game or something. I don't blame them. I don't call them that, oh, people don't understand art, because people live a life which takes a toll on them. And it was told them that when they go out to a public place, they should be entertained. That's what market does. That is what shopping malls are all about. That is what movie houses are all about. That's what parks are all about. So that is the expectation. And so people don't like to see that. Another thing, people don't like to see what they have not seen earlier. People, you remember that when you were a child, as a to your grandmother, you wanted to hear one favorite story of yours every night. You know the story, but you wanted to hear that story only. If somebody tells you another story, you would have said that, no, I want to sleep. I want to hear that story. That is comfort level. It's like comfort food. And everybody wants to see, hear, read something that they already know. Generally, people don't like surprise. They like small surprise, like iPhone has another brand which has a surprise. That much surprise is fine. But more than that, what is happening in one sitting in Amman, you may not be interested. I will tell you my personal experience. In last few years that I was here in Germany, our institution that Ala and I both are part of is called Academy of the Arts of the World. It has a huge, embarrassingly huge name, Arts of the World. It's a small institution, but it has a very big name. So, but to justify the name, I was the director. We had to do something which public here will consider, okay, arts of the world. Now, what can be arts of the world? Arts of the world, say, Syrian musicians who are living in refugee camp in Germany. They come, we invite them, and they do a performance of one evening. Love song, classical songs, and also resistance song, migrant song. Okay, should be fine, but it's not fine. People here consider that as elite art. Now, refugees in refugee camp in Germany are obviously not elite. They're poor thing in very bad shape. They are at everybody's mercy. They're not elite. But the language that they're singing, the music structure that they belong to is not familiar to people. So unfamiliarity made people think it's elite. So what you don't understand, you may call it elite, or you may call it below standard, like it's bad art. African music is noise. Often in Western world, people say that because they cannot take the frequency level of the drums, African drums. So they think it's noise. So it's non-art. Aesthetics is site-specific also. Again, what I heard from my grandmother has framed my sense of aesthetics. What is good art? What is bad art? What is elite art? What is, it all depends on familiarity. So another thing that curator needs to know, you cannot say there is a public and a curator and a public will come together. Curator will have to also cultivate the public, take them into confidence, sometimes do unpopular things, not always you. Popular things is what? Hollywood is the most popular. We cannot compete with Hollywood. We will never get that kind of audience. We should not aim at. So if we say what people like to see, people don't like to see anything that they don't want, they have not seen. And if you want to say something new, you want to show something new, you'll have to do pedagogy. So curators are also pedagogue. So curators are collector because they know who is thinking what they're bringing, take care of them because many of them are very fragile artists. Curators are site specific. They not only know where they are standing, but the works that they are bringing in those sites they know, the works they are bringing into those sites they need to know, and they also need to know their audience and need to know the deficiency of the audience. Don't romanticize the audience. Audience need to be built. The audience are never available. That is a political gimmick. Oh, I go one day, I give them an election speech and next day they vote for me. That's an election gimmick. That is not how art or knowledge or wisdom should function. It should be a process. It should be a repeat. It should be slow, and you need to stay put. These flying in curators come in, put up a great show. It runs for 3 months. It gets international acknowledgement. Then they go. I have lots of problem with that. Yeah. So pedagogy is very important. Unless we do a little bit of pedagogy, we will end up doing the same thing again and again. Amman people will only see Amman art. Indian people will only see here Indian music. Uganda people will only practice Ugandan craft and so on. And only Hollywood will be all over the planet. Yeah, we'll all pay a hell of a lot of money to see Hollywood in various languages. There will be nothing else called international art. International art will have to build. It doesn't exist. Any question? Yes. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, sure. You want to say something?
Yeah, I want to ask because I'm really interested in this notion of the curator also doing pedagogy. So can you expand more on what you mean by that? Like, what does that look like? Curating that is also pedagogically driven, or that takes pedagogy into account?
Now, okay, let me tell you one thing that what is the difference between education and pedagogy? Education goes by a course, institutional course. Pedagogy is more to improvise, to more one-to-one, to take care of. Like, so every time for pedagogy, we need to develop. There is no course which we can just download from the net. That NIU uses, or big universities use, and we do it. Then it will become in smaller institution like this. Pedagogy means on the field, one-to-one, and at the site-specific way of doing it. Say your exhibition itself can be pedagogy, but pedagogy also means that you don't have that hierarchy, that this is the teacher. When teacher comes, everybody must stands up and say, good morning, teacher, and then it's not that. It is also reciprocal. You learn something. Like if you are doing a show of refugees in Europe, in Syria. Now, Syrian people are already going to Europe to become a refugee, and they're petrified of that. They're tense about it. What show will you do that they don't know? So you will have to tell them that people who are going, what they're thinking. And what they're thinking are not only negative, they're also positive, because they're becoming somebody else. When they come, the whole process of coming from Syria to, say, Germany, it's a process. It makes the person somebody else, not completely somebody else, but it adds something to it. With that, that person gets some kind of worldview, which you as a curator want to bring back to Syria. Now, this process you'll have to explain. Now, how do you explain? If you give a lecture, nobody will listen to you. So you'll have to plan, how do I explain it? That no moment is the last moment in life. Every moment that we live, we grow, we add something to our worldview, and we add some skill to us. And that is what has to be communicated. If this is your curatorial thrust, you may have another curatorial thrust. But that pedagogy is that you also devise, strategize it. How do you explain? How do you explain why you are doing it? What is the motivation? What is the political understanding? Now, I will use the word politics a lot because I believe in politics. I know many young people like you have an allergy towards politics because you think politics is party politics, but I use politics as ideology or as belief. So don't get shocked. Have I explained, or maybe later on it gets clearer? Yeah. Okay. What I'm trying to say is not a question of that once we put up the show, our job is over. Our job is not over, because people may take it for a completely wrong reason. It may be a houseful show for completely wrong reason. I know that in India, if I do a show from Mali, there will be many men who will come to the show to see naked women. I'm sorry to say this, but they will, it may be a houseful show, but they will come completely for wrong reason. And as a curator, I should know that. So I should not go by the number of people who is attending it, because I need to know the site where I'm doing this show. And I also should know the site that show is coming from.
Excellent. So how much do you think, based on all of this, you're willing to deal with large numbers of audiences? I mean, how much do you think you can handle of numbers of audiences?
You know, that number I'm going to say is huge, so I'll not say it often. I would say every time we need to take a decision that we are doing it for large numbers, sometimes we need to do, which is called public art. Public art is like a public square. Okay, public square is for everyone. So some art should be for everyone, and some projects should not be for everyone. That's not censorship. That is that everything is not conducive. Everybody, you know, we often say a very stupid slogan. It irritates me like anything. We are equal. Who is equal to whom? Our fingers are not equal. How can we be equal? There should be equal opportunity. There should be equality, but we are not equals because we are not same. Okay, just because we have 2 hands, 2 legs, and 2 eyes, we are not same. Okay, there are certain things which are similar, which we'll share, but otherwise I'm curious to know how the kind of life you live, and you should be curious to know. We are not equals. So certain things will not be understood, should not go to everybody. That is also, sometimes you should not do public art. But sometimes you should also do public art. Interpreter has raised her hand or his hand. Do you want to say something, interpreter?
Yeah, she is Shaima. Shaima? Shaima, we don't hear you because probably you are on the other channel. One moment. Is Shaima talking? Just for us to know.
I can't hear her.
Okay. Aywa, I can hear you when I go to the English channel. Madhu, can you hear? One moment, can you hear the interpreter?
He's saying I am on the English.
No, I don't hear Madhu. One moment. What did you say, Madhu?
He's saying I'm on the English channel. That's in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
اوكي يعني مش سؤال، هو تعليق اوكي تمام خلص خلينا نرجع لانه تلخبطنا شوي. Madhu is just yeah, it's a technical issue related to the disruptions in the or interruptions in the translation.
Can I ask a question?
Who?
Iman.
Iman, تفضلي.
If you can give us an example of that, like of that idea that you were.
One moment. مش حاسة إنه هي مادو ولا هي على القناة الثانية. Madhu, are you on the English?
I'm on the, I don't know which channel I'm in.
Just now we hear you. Okay. Iman has a question.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you if you can share an example with us on that like last idea that you were talking about, how not all art should be public or.
No, it's the same logic like say science, macro and micro, or economics, macro and micro, right? So I mean, certain things are micro, certain things need to be. One sec, I'm having a charger problem. Let me. Do you have? I don't even have my phone. Do you have Adrian's phone number?
Adrian's phone number.
Huh? Yeah, Adrian's laptop and my laptop is the same. Please call him and say that if he.
If you can come.
No, or if his laptop is here, if I can use the, yeah, please, thanks. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. No, the thing is, say, I'm taking the liberty that we are here is a kind of homogenized group, though I know it's a public lecture, so I hope I'm not being blasphemous. Say there is an issue about women's menstruation and reproductive experience, not reproductive health, which the state talks about, or not the reproductive ethics, but anxieties. Women want a space of their own, and they want to they want to clear certain things. This is pedagogy. You'll have to provide that space to them. It's called safe space. Sometimes you'll have to give safe space to people. Or say, I'll again take a risk and say this. I have a certain relationship, or Allah Yunus has a certain relationship with the issue of Israel-Palestine. And when we are doing a show in Germany, Germany has a different relationship with Israel, which is also a historically valid relationship, okay, and which is completely clashing. But what we can say in India or in Amman, when we want to say it in Germany, we'll have to be taken care of that anti-Semitism has a very bloody and violent history here. Okay, so there are histories, there are memories, there are rights which sometimes clash each other. It's not who is right, who is wrong, but the thing is that we live in a multiple world. The same event create different kind of memories, different kind of histories for different kind of people. It is a lifelong exercise to learn to respect others' history, others' memory, and not let go of your own, which is not very easy. And we are always in different stages of that, and curators facilitate that. So if you open it to public, I may feel very vulnerable. I may feel very fragile. And that's what I mean by not going public, but creating safe space for people's experiences. I give you my family history. I give you my whole family document, but I don't want it to be shown in the town square. Okay, it may be having a very delicate letter, my mother talking about domestic violence, which I want to share with you as a feminist legacy, but at the same time, I don't want the whole world to talk about it, right? So how do you do it? This is where art is very handy. Art can give you that protection. Art can give you that layer. Art can sometimes obscure things, create palimpsest. Like there are things which are there, but unless you really take trouble, you will not find it. What you will find it is, okay, a simple story. But there is something more complex, more complicated, more nuanced, which is under it. And you should, that is what laying. So installation is not a question of how it will look beautiful. When you install an art as a curator, you take care of all these things. What needs protection? What needs to be covered half? What needs to be covered quarter? What needs to be fully exposed? What needs to be pumped up? Like it's a small thing, but it needs to be made big. Or it's a big thing, it needs to be made small. The scale, the positioning, how do you do it? These are not only, these are architectural decisions, but architecture is a science, is a politics, is an ideology here. What I'm trying to say that these are discursive concepts, but these are also has a practical concept, and these are related to practice because you are practicing curating. Curating is a practice. Is it getting clear?
Yes, I think for me, I mean, it's okay for you.
You're a master curator anyway.
Yes.
Okay, Ala asked me a question and I will give, okay, yeah. Dar, you want to ask something?
Ala. So Dar Qandil is the name of the institution and his name is Ala.
Okay, hello.
Ala, بدك تسأل سؤال؟
أنا كنت أسأل اللي حكته بالآخر، يعني هو موجه للفنانين ولا للمؤسسات؟ يعني لما إحنا بدنا نراعي هم التاريخ تبعهم في أشياء كذا، أنا معك تماماً، يعني إنه أكيد كل واحد لازم يراعي تاريخ الناس وظروفهم وشغلهم، كل إشي فيهم يعني لازم واحد يراعيه. هم كمان لازم يراعوني كمان، أنا لما براعيهم هم براعوني برضه، لأن إحنا بنلتقي في إشي مشترك، فبالتالي قديش انا بوعيه لازم اوعيهم هذا من كل النواحي، وهم كمان لازم يوعوني من كل النواحي. ليش اجوا على المعرض اذا مش مهتمين، او ليش انا بعمل معرض اذا انا مش مهتم؟ فبالتالي احنا مهتمين اثنين، انا لازم اوعيهم، هم لازم يوعوني. بس كان سؤالي هو هذا اللي حكته تفضلت فيه الاخير، اللي هو اكيد صح، يعني المراعاه، بس هو موجه للفنانين مثلا ولا للمنظمين المجتمعيين؟ لمين يعني؟ مين اللي لازم اراعي؟ يعني انا اذا كفنان اذا بدي اشتغل عمل فني بعبر فيه عن وجهه نظر او عن احساس او عن اي الهام، مثلا بدي ابرزه مثلا انه لا ما بزبطش شلون تعمل لون ازرق عشان في مثلا هيك يعني، ولا هو للمنظمين يعني الحكي؟
تمام، خليني أترجم عشان الموضوع طول. So he agrees with you that yeah, or understands that you say that we have to take like we have to consider the audience, or we have to consider the context that we are presenting in, but and the conditions and and the circumstances and all of that. But do we is it, first of all, like two questions, is this or two questions / statements, are this راحت are this like this is like requested or required from the organizers or from the artists or from the social workers? Who's supposed to be considering the other, and at the same time and like being considered ourselves, like being respected, or also like our needs, our ideas, our creative impulse should be also considered and should be also respected likewise. Can we accept or expect people to come and tell us how we like interfere in the way we make our work just because they are our audience?
Okay, let me see whether I understood the question. But Allah, what is the question? Actually, I'm a little confused. Yeah.
The question is, first of all, when we say that we are considerate, or we have to understand the context or the people and that we are presenting to, do we expect that they are also they should also make this effort to understand who we are, since they are coming to the works that we are producing? And do I have to, as an artist, also change or submit to changes that are required or kind of like imposed on me by the visitors or by the audience?
You use the word social work, and I will tell you that artists are not social workers. Social workers, I mean, this is full respect to social workers. Social workers are not artists, and artists are not social workers. We should be very careful. There can be some very talented people who are both, but that's a different thing. Artists are given little more space than the social workers are. Social workers need to prove at every day almost, or at every occasion, that what they're saying is for the good of the people. Artists are given more space, because what is good of people is not so simple, it's not so tactile, you cannot catch it. Now, if you start saying, okay, I will do an international show, for that you need to know the map of the world very well, nobody will come to your show. So naturally, you cannot say that. So naturally, nothing succeeds like success. First of all, you will have to do a good-looking show, okay, so that people come. Okay, and then you will also have to have many eye-catching slogans. But if you want to sustain as a curator, if you don't want to become an event manager, I think more than social worker, I think we should be very careful that curators are not event manager. Curators are all these things. Curators are pedagogue, curators are discursive, curators are scientists, and curators are artists themselves. They need to understand production of art, display of art, materiality, the value, and all these things very well. And then only you become a curator. I mean, I will now give you some example once you finish this series of questions. Yes, Yakin.
Yeah, hi. My question is more about how to control the audience. So when you're making an exhibition or a show or whatever, you're creating a specific program. So sometimes it's more intended, well, the invites are more, public invites. So how would you control the audience, just making sure that the ones who are coming to the exhibition or to the show would really understand what is the intentions behind putting this program and the context behind each of these works. And at the same time, I'm thinking about the example that you just gave us about, like, sometimes as creators, we need to hide or to cover certain parts of the artworks. And I was wondering, actually, by doing so, doesn't that mean that we are intervening with the artist's work and with their intentions? We're changing how the art will look like and how it's going to be understood, regardless of the original artwork.
Okay. Your first question is that how much do we tell people? It is not an ice cream shop. And this is I'll give you an example of my personal life. Once I made a film on the city that I lived in, which is Mumbai, one of the largest cities in the world, and the most dense, most populated, and most difficult city in the world. And it's on the history of that city. Very ambitious project. It worked, it did not work to some extent. It is a film. And one section, small section, is on the working class, because it was also an industrial city. But there are other things. It was literature, music, and some very elite things. And 6 languages were spoken in that. That means it is subtitled in English. And if somebody doesn't know English, cannot watch the film, because 7 languages very few people know. But the city speaks in 7 languages. So it was my artistic decision that I will have all the 7 languages in the film. Now, film premiere, and the working class union, the workers union people came in large group for the premiere, because they knew me and they thought that I'm making a film on the city. That means their stories will be there. So they came to see, and I was so scared, because 60% of the films are in a language that they don't know, and they cannot read the English subtitle. I was so embarrassed, and I didn't know what to say. Should I tell them don't go in? But I was also very touched. They came to a very fancy premiere cinema hall. Anyway, they watched the film, and I didn't meet them after the show, because I was too embarrassed, because they will say, what elite film you have made, and we could not understand. Next morning, one of them called and said, will you bring the film to our neighborhood? We want to show it in the open air. We'll put a, like curtain and show the film. I said, what? I mean, I thought you would not like the film, because the film was on other languages. You know what that trade unionist told me? He said, look, we are not middle class. We don't want all the flavor that is available in one ice cream to be available to me. Ice cream, which has 3 flavors, and I must get all the 3 flavors. He said, nothing we understand fully. When we watch Bollywood film, Hollywood film, also we don't understand half the things. It's okay, but what we understand, we stick to it. And then maybe second time we understand better. This is Bertolt Brecht theory, and this guy knew it better than me. That little alienation gives you a vantage position, you understand something. Don't be patronizing, and try to make things so that people understand. People will develop their understanding if you are honest in your world. Don't be dishonest in order to be patronizing to your audience, that, oh, poor things, they will not understand. We have no idea what people understand. But of course, there is risk of failure. I would say an artist failed more times than she succeeds. But for me, it is fine, because every failure teaches us much more than the success. Second thing, you were saying that if we do obscure, do we interfere, unfairly interfere with the original artwork? Now, their problematic words here is original. Problematic word here is artwork. First of all, yes, if it is Mona Lisa and you put glass in front of Mona Lisa, then the frontal view of smiling Mona Lisa, which everybody is used to see, it will be blasphemous. Nobody will forgive you for that. You may get jailed even. Okay. But if you are a curator of a contemporary time, you obviously work with your audience. I'll give you an example again of the show that with Ala Yunis I've curated, which is running hands. In that, one artist from Iraq, not from Iraq, I mean, he is from Iraq, now living in Europe, made a work. And the work is based on the US Army looted Baghdad Museum, you know, in 2003. And since then, a lot of Iraqi paintings got, I mean, we don't know where they are. So it was a completely obscure reference to that. Either it was a political fear or it is an artistic decision. I don't want to say that, but the artist decided he will make an artwork inspired by that, but it will be audience's responsibility to find it. So he didn't want to say it. So what he did, his artwork is a story. The story is that there was a museum which was being built on a slope island, you know, slope like this. So it could not stand, and so it collapsed. The curator of the museum then goes to the destroyed museum to retrieve whatever artworks he could. Obviously, it is the artist himself. But when the curator reaches the destroyed museum, he finds that paintings are torn. And on the torn paintings, some caterpillar. The caterpillars are sleeping because they came there, they were attracted to the smell of painting. Okay, so they came there and they're sleeping. Now this caterpillar will be butterfly tomorrow. So he did not have the heart to kill or wake these caterpillars. So the artwork is, he made a painting, which is copy of a painting, because now Iraqi paintings will be only in the next generation memory as they can copy it. So original is gone. Original is a advantage, is a privilege. It's available to Mona Lisa, not to Iraqi painters. So now it will be the copy from the memory of the next generation. Even that is fragile. So he makes a painting, he cuts them into pieces, and then he makes clay sculpture of the caterpillar and place each caterpillar on one torn painting. Then he hides them inside a huge jacket into the flap, the torn pieces. You'll have to really look for it. And he brings that museum, the history of Iraqi art being destroyed by US Army, to Cologne, hidden in a jacket museum. It is the artist's demand that history or the story is not said on your face. It is far more effective when you find this story. So the art itself is asking you to find this story. He is an artist curator. He doesn't need allowed me to curate. Actually, he curated it. He is absolutely clear how it should be communicated. So now this artwork, but the story is the larger artwork, the frame. But the story is also not fully, because in the story which he told to the audience, he does not really mention this looting of Baghdad. Because you must understand, because his safety is also involved. His citizenship status at the moment is not very clear. That's why I'm not telling you the name. though you can find out very easily. But
put the link in the
yeah, but there are many things. So there it's not everything is not Mona Lisa that come and hang it on the wall. You know, you take much more responsibility.
I see there is a question in the chat, but also from Reem Merji.
Okay, can we be little quick on our questions, because I want to show you certain things.
Yeah, of course. I will just actually, I had a long question, but like you answered most of it now in the example that you've just given us. I wanted us to like reflect together on the notion of opacity by Edward Glissant, and like the people's right to be opaque and like not to share their story fully or not to be visible enough. So like I just wanted to ask you, like, how can we respect the people's right to be opaque, and especially the people who are represented within the image of the artwork, and also not to fall into the trap of being too minimal or too reductive. Yeah, that's it.
Very, very, very nice question. You know, again, I'll go back to pedagogy, that what happened, it is today's media world has done this to people. There is too much distrust. We don't want to tell our story. Now, personal, I mean, there was a slogan in our young days, I'm sure you know about this slogan, personal is political. Okay, now nobody ever says these slogans anymore, but we grown up with such feminist slogan, when women's stories were not part of the history, because women were not important enough, and women started telling their story and said it is personal story. Okay, then personal is political. Okay, but today personal has made into a business. Memory is a business. You put one, every photo that you put on Facebook, you don't realize that you are actually putting it in the commercial world. Okay, every event is Getty image. I mean, I was shocked. My own photo, it's a selfie taken by myself, is in Getty, and I could use it because I have to get Getty. I don't know. Now, if I try to sue Getty, is it possible? Of course, they're wrong, but who has the time to prove them wrong? So one is that people have got distrust. They don't want to share. I have done a lot of archive and memory project where people are invited that come, share your memory, share your archive. And you know what? I got strange experience. One, people say, why should I trust you? Why should I trust people? Why should I show my grandmother's love letter, share it with people? Fair enough. But the thing is, then it will die. Your grandmother's memory will die with you. If that is fine with you, don't do it. But if you think your grandmother was a particular time, like I say this to in Germany, people that has gone through the war, and if you think that experience has to be shared, then you share it. 1 second. So there was noise outside. That's one thing. So there is, because people privacy is so much interfered by surveillance, by market, by extracting resources from you, that there is a distrust. Now, the social spaces where ordinarily people shared their life, people are trying to guard it for two reasons. One is that they don't trust anybody anymore. And secondly, everybody completely erroneously think, if I sit on my family's album, one day I'll get a lot of money from Bill Gates. You will not. I'm sorry, you will not get it. So selectively, do you want to share it with some people? Fair enough if you don't want to share it with some people. But personal, private, and public are completely three different things. And we should be very clear about it. And time to time, depending on the situation, your own position will change. There is no fixed position that you believe everybody should share everything. No, it's not always possible. Everybody should keep their personal experiences to themselves. There would have been no feminism. Half of us, at least I wouldn't have been here if women's stories, women's private stories were not made public 40 years back. That's why I could have a career as a woman. as a single woman. So it's important. It played a historical role, and that's why most of you are here, because I'm here, and then some other people. So at one point, what was considered as private or personal were made public, and that's why history happened, right? But at certain time, it has also made into a capital. Today, every state is going on under surveillance, or market is taking all your data, all your choices, all your personal things, what you desire, whom do you desire, how do you talk, whom do you talk with, everything is made into a market. So it's a very difficult choice. Today, memory is also a big business. 20 years back, when we were talking about memory work is care work, we are thinking about women, we were thinking about refugees, we were thinking about war victims, and we thought if they share their memory, they will be healed. Today, that is a media market. So we'll have to think differently. There is nothing that we have done our job, we have arrived. We have to start fresh again and again, because market and politics change again and again. So there is no hard and fast answer to it. Then you will come back tomorrow and say, oh, you said this, but now see, Amazon also says that. Yeah, true.
Thank you.
Okay, now, is there anybody else asking question? Otherwise, I want to show you something, and I'm very scared because my battery is going. Yeah, and I somehow could not find a charger. Any other question, or can I go to what I want to show you?
There was a question on the concept of commitment and committed art. What does it mean to you? How essential could be in a colonial context like ours as Palestinians? And should an artistic freedom be compromised for any reason?
Committed art, every art is committed. You produce things, art you produce, like thinking, out of your body. The body is experience, memory, what you have heard about, what you have gone through, and what you wish, what you desire. So all these things produce art, produce thinking, produce love. It's committed. Everybody is committed. Hollywood is committed. It's committed to market. Okay, so you'll have to decide, what are you committed to? There is nothing called committed. There is nothing called generically committed. What are you committed to? Whom are you committed to? And that also may change. At some time, you are committed to Palestine, concept of Palestine, struggle of Palestine. Sometimes you are committed to your own ethnic group within Palestine, and you may have to have some issues with the Palestine state. Sometimes you are for women of Palestine, or Arab women in general, or only for your mother, as against for rest of the family. Even that moment may appear. So you never know. So this is not a fixed consolidation, but it can more or less have a pattern that I will not be with America, or I will not be with so-and-so. But that's very generic. That does not help in a day-to-day situation. Especially, I don't envy you who are growing up now, young people. World is changing very fast. At least when I was your age, world was changing a little slow. So we had time to work out things. Now things are changing so fast. Politics is changing. Foes are changing. Enemies are changing. Friends are changing every day. So we'll have to work out our commitment every morning, I would say. So everybody is committed, but the thing is committed to what? If anybody says, even the most commercial of the artists say that I don't have an ideology, is lying. That ideology is a market ideology. But of course, everybody has an ideology. You cannot produce anything if you don't have an ideology. You cannot even copy. Because what do you copy? Whom do you copy? Okay. Ala asked me a question that how many people maximum can you curate? Now, I have a blasphemous distinction of I'm a little embarrassed to say it, curating 3,000 artists. Okay, but I would not say curating. It was a self-curated event. It was called World Social Forum. It's very, there is an article that I've written later on. I don't know whether Allah has distributed it. Yeah, but I'm sure you have not read it, but maybe after this you will read it. That the problem of this. It was not a choice. It was World Social Forum started in 2000 in Brazil against globalization. Now, some of you may not have been born now what to say, but 2000 was the, you remember 2003 is the last US invasion to Iraq happens. And 2000 was the peak of globalization, which was flattening the world, not for any international solidarity, but for the market, global market. So in Brazil, that time, Brazil has a progressive state, so that helped them a bit. And people came together and started World Social Forum as against World Economic Forum, which was like all the World Bank and all these finance institutions, who was deciding what should be the financial strategies for the whole world. Some European and American people are coming together and deciding what should be the economy of the whole world. As against that is People's Forum, World Social Forum. For 3 years, it happened in Brazil. And the 4th year, they decided that it should now travel to the world. And it came, so it was scheduled to happen in India. And that also Mumbai, which is my home city. And nobody has any idea this wonderful but old-fashioned word, world, social, and forum. And then we were friends, we were association of filmmakers and visual artists. None of us were really curator or anything. It came on our lap and people said, organize the culture. And we were very upset. We said, no, it is a political forum. What culture? You only want to listen to some music in the evening. We will not do that. But then suddenly we thought that people apparently will come from 130 countries. Will we ever get such an opportunity in life? And they will be peace activists, feminist activists, environmental activists. I mean, all sorts of things like Japanese monk for peace and a Palestinian resistance volunteer and trade unionist from Detroit will be our audience. I mean, it's a challenge, it's a nightmare. And I must say I was young and I agreed to do this because nobody who had more experience could do it. Now I'll show you some images of that.
Tartil, can we share?
Give me a share.
Yeah.
Can I share screen? Yeah.
Tartil.
Yes, one moment.
Yeah.
Can you try now?
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Share screen. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see it? Allah?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now see the people. This is the opening. It was some 70,000 people from 130 countries. Now, this is the number. Sorry, I'll have to go by this because I need to see my note. Okay. Now, this is the number people told us before we had to start. Now, as a curator, what would be your crisis? That first of all, what language? I mean, what event? It has to be an event. It has to be a 3 hours event to 130 people from 130 countries of different register, of different kind. Mind you, nobody was paid for. Everybody came with their own money and everybody stayed with their own money. But everybody will bring art also with their own money, but you'll have to create space. So our responsibility was to create space. How do you create space for that? We started studying, we started thinking. I'm just sharing this with you. And then we decided that, okay, there are two possibilities. I mean, what should be the height of the stage? What should be the thing? What kind, how many speakers? What language? What body language? And so there are two things. In 1970s, you may not know, but you can now study. There, during the Cold War, in the socialist bloc, that is Russia and Eastern Europe, there used to be huge youth festival like this. They used to bring youth delegates from all over the world, used to do big youth festival where Bob Dylan, Pete Seeger, they used to sing. Harry Belafonte, these big stars were singing. So one is to take the size of those stages. But you know what? Now, in the 21st century, superstars don't exist. There is no, I mean, it doesn't happen like that. So that idea is out. Another idea is big media extravaganza, right? Media does this kind of project, huge. But very interestingly, so this socialist bloc extravaganza of progressive youth culture and the media extravaganza of 21st century, you won't believe it, in scale and in look, it is the same. I have the stage measurement and I can tell you it is the same measurement. That means the concept of scale of progressive politics and commercial market are the same. Either we go by that or we oppose it. It's up to you. I have no formula to say, okay? I'm just sharing my dilemma, the crisis. Okay, this was the time, it was 2004, 2003, USA invaded Iraq, US Army was doing havoc every day, Guantanamo stories are coming. So these are the people who are, it's an industrial shed, huge industrial shed. India, as you know, is a very large country. Everything is very big there. We have 1.3 billion people. Count how many zeros are there. So our industries are also big. It's a big shed and we are doing this project. This is the closing. We are trying to do the same scale of media extravaganza and social and youth festival of the socialist bloc, but trying to change the look of it. But we had to do programs which are different. So what we did, we gave a call to video letters. We told people that you can create a letter to the World Social Forum. Those are even cell phone was not very popular, but some people had it, and we shall show it. And people just send letters to the forum. Now, today it sounds, with the social media and this and that, it sounds very simple to your generation, but 2003, it was very novel thing for people to, so the idea was to make people feel that you can also produce art. It is possible. So one is that expand the concept who is an artist, okay, and thus reduce this antagonism between art and society. Oh, art is elite. Oh, art is too difficult. Oh, art is not for ordinary people. All these things by making art practices slightly. Everybody will not become Picasso tomorrow, but it will slightly available to other people by creating formats which can be handled by people who did not go to art school. Yeah. Then making audience, as I told you, that is a major sorry, what's happening? that how do you make audience? I said that time, repeat for a long time. So what we did, we went to the art schools and asked the faculty and the students there that come and paint the public vehicles with what you think World Social Forum should be. And because the vehicles will run in the city for a long time. So one day people will say, what is it? Second day they'll say, okay, let's see what I'll have a look at it. Third day, little more tolerance. Fourth day, curiosity. Fifth day, maybe familiarity. But then we need to think of sites which can stay, which has the capacity to reach to many people. And even if they reject it in the first go, but it has the capacity to go back again and again. So finding spaces like that. Yeah. So there are, and also to tell artists that you want to reach to people, we give you this backdrop or this site, make use of it. So don't grumble that people don't see art. Do something, and yeah, so this is what they are. And they're all like very famous artists, but they all came and stood at the platform and painted. Yeah. These are school buses. And you cannot read it maybe, but this is a stick, this is a, what do you call it, tape, which is written, there is no border here. So the school buses went around in schools. Of course, this negotiation had to do with the schools, with the railways, but it's possible. That's what I'm trying to say. Then we made sacks like that called moving people, because it was migration time, and so moving people, and there are sacks and people could rest because it's very hot. You know, India, Mumbai is a very hot and humid city, so people were tired, and it's gallery come restroom kind of a thing. So there will be, in each of these sacks, there will be little stages. But the structure itself is a politics. Structure itself is an art, but it also has a purpose to play. So each of these are actually the one artist work. But when they're put together, they are beyond one work. So that's curating. No, I mean, we have not produced it. It's artists who came themselves with their own money, they produced it. But how we arranged it. And as somebody said, sometimes you obscure some people's work. Yeah. You take that risk. There is no playing safe, you know. There are risks. See, this is the closing ceremony. People are tired. So this is an artwork which we left it there, and people are taking little rest. Then they are only taking it in the rally. So rally is a huge rally. So they took over. They're taking rest. Then they are pushing it around. Of course, artists will have to agree. Artist names doesn't go anywhere. I mean, you don't know who is this artist. I mean, I know, but this is a moment. This was a very important historical moment. So everybody agreed. I don't know, in a normal circumstances, it could happen. It could not happen. So art also has a relationship with what is happening outside our art world. That is the movement. That is the moment. World Social Forum is still there, but it's not there anymore. I mean, that was a time when this movement happened because of the war, because of the globalization, and that moment is gone. So some great art was created at that time. See, this is a Japanese artist who in Kenya made this house with cardboard boxes, and then one Kenyan performance artist is cycling it around the city. So these works then went into the public place, and they got destroyed because they're made of perishable things. They are not, again, Mona Lisa for anybody to take to their museum. So as you can see, there was a emphasis on vehicles, on moving. So this was our art gallery, which was actually made of discarded vehicles. It's called Moving People. So we also painted this, what do you call it? Whatever, you know, you cover the drains.
Manholes.
Manholes, yeah. Then this is like, I'm just giving you one example of our program design, which was also made of like these boxes that you send for customs. Then a movement. There are people, women for peace. They wear black and they stand in various countries every Saturday. This is a movement in various cities. The city square, I think every second Saturday they collect and they hold, for years they hold one lamp. It's a candle in Western countries, but in India, it is a lamp, oil lamp. And so we invited them. We said that it's also performance art. It's a movement, it's a campaign, but it's also performance art. You look beautiful and you come. And this is how politics and art can overlap each other. This is, again, Mumbai's also post-industrial city. The working class has lost its livelihood. Factories have closed, so they are singing under the world's map. World's real map, not the map that we see in Atlas. The map we see in Atlas is not actually the map of the world. I hope you know that. Yeah. This is very interesting. That time, the cultural minister of Brazil is actually a great pop singer, Gilberto Gil. You may have heard him singing, or you can Google him. He's fantastic. He sings in Portuguese, Spanish, and English. So he's singing like anybody else. Yeah. And this was a banner. This is a design which is actually circular. So actually the hand stops. If you make it circular, then the hand stops the tank. And the hand is not a very muscular hand. It's actually a very ordinary hand. And I could not find a photograph quickly, but we printed them in many, and people wore it like a shawl. So, you know, they wore a hand, which is a simple hand, which is trying to close the tank. And that was the closing ceremony. That's closing, simple, that we just distributed that like a shawl to people. Yeah, so these are some example, but I'll tell you what are the problems. Problem is that people don't come very easily. People find it elite. People think that if there are languages, all these things that I tell you, that language disfamiliarity is very important. And secondly, political people or even artists who believe themselves as political activists, they think that what is simple or what is minimalist, somebody was talking about minimalism. I got my charger, so I'll not speak so fast anymore. Okay, so minimalism as if is a virtue. No, minimalism is a strategy. In 1960, many people used minimal art to protest against the art hegemony, but that's a political decision. Otherwise, minimalism is not simplicity. You know, the understanding is that agricultural land, which has a simple production process, which produces, say, 1 or 2 crops in a year, has a simple lifestyle. In the evening or during harvesting, they sing a song. That's the purest of art. No, that's one art. That's related to one, not art, is culture. Living culture and art are two different things. But anyway, at the moment, I'm not going into that. But this living culture is related to the livelihood of the living practice. Now, when I was doing this curating, there was demand from big politicians that harvest songs from all over the world. You do curate that. I said, but why? It has nothing to do with harvesting. Harvest songs happen when you are doing it in the land. It has something to do with the horizontal agricultural land. I put them on a 60 feet height stage. I'll kill them. One can do it, but for that one had to do years of working with them in order to bring them there. That's one example of failure or clash of understanding of what culture or art could be. Another example is that, what was it? I forgot. I forgot. Anyway, somebody has a question. You ask me the question, maybe I will remember it. I can stop sharing the screen. Yeah. Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you, Madhu. Okay, we have two raised hands. Ala.
Yeah.
Ala, بدك تسأل سؤال؟
Lud, and okay, can I ask you to hold on for 3 minutes, because I remember and it is very related and I want to finish that. One problem, as I told you, that taking minimalism, which is actually not minimalism, which is actually related to our lifestyle, which is simpler than what it is to maybe today's contemporary urban lifestyle. To make that purer than the other is to say living culture has nothing to do with lifestyle. Lifestyle is not simple. How can living culture be simple anymore? Right. So that is one problem of doing political art, this kind of demand. They will not make this demand to trade union politics. They will not make this demand to environment politics, but they will make this demand on art, because their relationship with art is also almost similar to the market's relationship with art. So another example I'll give you is that Sufi. I mean, most of you are from Arab world, so you know the Sufi. I mean, Sufi culture is understood slightly differently through Asia and North Africa, but it's more or less the same. So what we understand is the Sufi poets, bards, singers who walked across the land and composed and sang, sometimes with the state, sometimes with, against the state, sometimes with people, sometimes doing pedagogy, sometimes doing resistance. That's the Sufi culture for centuries. Now, there are villages, the whole village is one Sufi cluster, so to say. They perform together. Now, we wanted like a very romantic notion that we'll have a whole night program of showing Sufi culture crossing the map of the world. So we had this idea, we'll have a huge map of the world and it will lit up from this section, the music is coming. It will be in different languages, I mean, slightly different, but it will be something. It was very silly, and I'll tell you why it was silly. It's a complete flop. So I'm telling you, you must have the courage to have failure. It was a super flop. First of all, people, the Sufi culture, which is so known for its mobility, that it traveled from one land to another land, now they cannot travel because many of these countries they can't get visa to travel. I mean, they don't have embassies in some other country, which is very difficult. They don't have an email ID, they don't have phone number, it's very difficult to reach them. Then they're huge number because huge number of people perform together. The single poet traveling, those days are over. It's more like covers, so lots of people. We cannot bring the whole set of people. It will be ethically very wrong to break the group and to bring only the prize singer, because that will be against this community culture. So we cannot become an agent to break the community culture. So the mobility that they are famous for, when the whole globe shrank in globalization, they became inaccessible. Who were otherwise accessible when all of us were inaccessible to each other? So how, globalization, in order to shrink the globe, has actually pushed some people out. Sufi musicians were one of them. They could not be brought in. They could not be part of all social forum. This is my experience, full of failures, but giving me enough steam to go for next 15 years. Yeah, your questions.
Thank you very much. Maybe we take both questions and then you try to answer. We have 10 more minutes. علاء بتحب تسأل سؤالك وبعدين جو تسأل وبحكي لها السؤالين وعشان أجوبة بتيجي طويلة.
And if there is time, I have 5 minutes film I want to show. Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's keep time for that as well. Okay, علاء بدك تسأل سؤال؟ رافع ايدك لأنه
بس علاء مش سامعك علاء.
طيب حدا سامعني؟
كنت بقول يعني بدي أشكرك على هاي الصور الحلوة. في كتير صور منها كانت ملهمة زي الكراتين اللي فوق بعضها، هاي كانت كتير حلوة. بس كنت بحكي كمان الحلو كتير لما حكيتي إنه كانوا وصلوا على القطار، بس يعني كانوا كتير إنه كل يوم بشوفوا إشي مختلف عشان هيك. بس كمان أنا كنت بدي أسأل سؤال، أو يعني مش عارف، بحب أعرف كيف وصموا الوصمات. يعني كانوا مثلا القطار يمشي يوصموا، بعدين لما يروح على المحطة الثانية يجي قطار جديد أو محطة يعني كونتينر جديد يوصموا كمان وصمة، ولا كيف كانت تتم العملية؟ أنا عندي فضول إن أعرف كيف كانت تتم العملية. هل كان القطار واقف مثل الحياة كان يوصموا، ولا يعني إنه كان يعني هاي حاب عندي فضول. وكثير بيكون حلو لو إنه يعني أنصح بتنقل القطار بروح بده هم بيوصموا إشي جديد، ممكن في يعني ناس جداد بينزلوا هيك بده بيستلهموا. يعني كنت أنا حاب أعرف شيء، بس كمان أكمل ولا؟
طيب كمل علشان أوكي. إيش السؤال الجزء الثاني؟
الصور اللي كان فيها زي بوابة وفي 3 يافطات، وكانت تحكي إنه يعني كل واحد حط بمزاجه، بس مهم إنه نشوف الصورة الكاملة. أنا شخصياً شفت على اليمين في خيمة كان عليها زي هيك عمود طويل وعليه علم مطعوز مش مبين منيح، أنا حسيته علم فلسطين. فأنا كنت بحكي لو إنه هذا عن صح علم فلسطين، يعني زي ما أنا متخيل يعني بصفة الجمهور، يعني
ماشي.
هذا الشيء أنا جمهور، يعني لو إنه علم فلسطين زي ما أنا تخيلته كجمهور، اللي نفرض إنه الفنان اللي حطه عن صح حط علم فلسطين، وهذا كان موجود مثلا في ألمانيا ولا بعرفش وين، يعني بزبط مثلا نقيمه كيف كانت لنا قبل، ولا نخليه على سبيل المثال. أنا كجمهور حبيته كثير، إذا هي قامته بتحرمني منه، بس يعني هاي واحدة من الوحدات. كمان كنت بدي أسأل
مش عارفة إذا في وقت لكل هالأشياء بس يعني
معلش علاقة حطوا لنا كل هاي الأشياء، في عندنا أسئلة كثير مالناش علاقة، يعني شو عامل لك يعني؟
ما بعرف. طب اسألني.
حطت صور نساء من أجل السلام، حطت صور حكت بحاولوا يجيبوا الناس، بس ما حكتش بالموضوع يجيبوهم عشان إيش؟ فيعني هاي الصورة يعني يعني ما حكتش شيء صراحة.
أوكي تمام.
وآخر شيء بس معلش، هل يعني مش عارف، حاسس إنه يعني كأنه يعني الموضوع الجمهور مربوط في الأعداد، هل هي تقصد الأعداد يعني كيف بدنا نجيب أعداد، ولا يعني شو بالضبط؟
أوكي تمام خلاص كافية علشان كتير الأسئلة أوكي شكرا يا علاء. Okay, so I'm gonna translate to you, Madhu. Now it's very too many, like 5 questions almost, or 5 comments. He thanks you for the images. He finds them really intriguing, particularly the image with these card boxes on top of each other. He was interested to know how practically it was the cabins, the train cabins, or the train cabins or wagons were painted. Were they like, you know, stopping at each station and people were painting, or artists were painting, people coming in and out, or maybe they were painted in rest times? Or that's one question. Do you want to say, but then there are 4 more things to ask. He was also asking about like when you showed like an image of a gateway and there was like 3 signs or something, he kind of noticed or glimpsed a Palestinian flag. Was it a Palestinian flag? He was very, yeah, it was. So he was very happy to see that there's a Palestinian flag. He, as an audience, was very much entertained or kind of like happy with that. But had this been happening somewhere else and it was to be removed or needs to be removed, I don't know if the question was, would you remove it or would you consider removing it? Something like that.
I got the question, Yala. Okay, I mean, I know what he's asking. Yeah.
And then the third, And then there was another question about like when you showed the words, the images of women for peace, you didn't tell us exactly why they were coming, I mean, not the women, why you were doing this show, for whom to come, or to when they come, what do they do when they come to see this show? And is it the question of the audience, is it its success, is the success of like the relationship to the audience is related to the how many people they can, like how many people could be in the audience? So as I said, a few questions.
Well, I'll avoid most of the questions because I want to show you a 6 minutes clip where your questions will be answered. You can see who, where, how. Only that Palestinian flag question I will answer. Of course, there was Palestinian flag. Palestinian issue was one of the centermost issue in World Social Forum. I want all of you to do Google search, buy books, get acclimatized to this movement. It was, I always call it the biggest and maybe the last romance of my life. And it's true of my entire generation. I hope in your own time, you get one World Social Forum. It's worth living for as artist and as person. So Palestine, of course, is one of the center image in that. But the question, as I told you, there is no fixed politics. Politics changes with time. So who will take out which flag from which land is very difficult to predict. I will not do that, but I can only say that, Palestinian movement, World Social Forum was very, I mean, it was one of the centerist point. Women in Black is a movement, it's an international movement. They do a little performance, as I told you, every second Saturday in many cities around the world. We just ask them to repeat that little performance for the World Social Forum so that more people like you get curious about this movement and get to know about it. Yeah. Rest of the questions, you will find it when I show you the clip.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's see the film.
Okay, I show you the film and I think that can be the end then. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can, yeah. Oh, you'll have to give me the share screen. How do
Should be working.
I think you still have the permission if you try.
Okay, let's see. 1 second. Don't start.
But we don't see it. Please share your screen because we don't see it.
Oh. I lost it. I already share screen. Can you see now?
No, we don't see it.
No.
No?
I can't.
Do you see now?
Yes, we can see now.
Yeah.
participants of the 4th edition of the World Social Forum, artists, representatives of governments, intellectuals, and activists, citizens of India, dear friends. Let's go together.
So please come and join us and to abolish nuclear weapons. Please come from one across the phone from
Kenya, where the sun shines for 14 months. Another world is possible. Together.
En junio como en enero, cultivo una rosa blanca. En junio como en enero, para el amigo sincero que me da su mano
No to FAA. Sí a la vida.
Yes to life.
¡Salgan a el codo! It's empty! It's absolutely empty!
America.
How can one speak about Muslim fundamentalism in India after the genocide in Gujarat? How can one speak about Muslim fundamentalism in Palestine when it is occupied by Israel? And how can one speak about Muslim fundamentalism in Iraq when it is bombed and occupied by the US?
ऐसी शक्लें के मिटाओ तो मिटाए न बने, ऐसे शोले के बुझाओ तो बुझाए न बने, ऐसे नारे के दबाओ तो दबाए न बने। दबकेगा तो जम जाएगा।
As I told you, it's a big romance. Yeah.
Wow, thank you very, very much. I think we are already, we've taken 2 hours of your time while I asked for only 1. I see there were more questions, but people can ask these questions in the, like in the closed workshop, or they can communicate these questions to us and I can also communicate them to you. I'd like to very much thank you for your for the way you think and also the way you present and for the way you take in these questions and also like materialize them into new ideas or into like, you know, mix of experiences and also of answers. Yeah, thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you, Ala. There is somebody who has asked a question. I want to reply that, and that should be my thank you to all of you. It is, can the artistic freedom be compromised for any reason? Only to live life. Art is not larger than life, but for nothing else. Only if there is a thing that for life you have to compromise art, do it. No, for no other reason. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you. نراكم جميعا في يوم السبت الجاي. هبعت لكم هلا ايميل. شكرا للحضور اللي اجى من خارج الورشة. سلام للجميع.
شكرا. لا تصبحوا على خير.
على خير.